Demon Slayer Infinity Castle was pretty good. I want to talk about what happened and about the themes and worldviews that helped it cut through records worldwide. And it all began with Shinobu vs. Doma. After Shinobu walks in on Doma consuming young girls, she realizes that he matches the description of her sister Kane's murderer. Bloodstained silver hair, a gentle demeanor, a fan as a weapon, and a constant smile. That constant smile is important, because if you know anything about Shinobu, you know that she also constantly smiles. She wears it to honor her late sister, whom Doma killed, but when face to face with Doma, that feature is gone. And it's a wonderful juxtaposition between this nonchalant character who smiles at death and a typically smiling character whose demeanor is consumed with rage because of it. Though she's filled with rage, she keeps enough composure to make and use different poisons on Doma. And my goodness, did she ever show off her speed during this battle? Even Doma praised it, but throughout it all, you can tell that he's just toying with her. He knows that she can't go for his head, which is the main way she can defeat him, because she doesn't have enough physical strength to, make him see his body from a different vantage point, if you catch my drift. And what that does over the course of the battle is slowly cause Shinobu to lose tact. Constantly being reminded that she's not physically imposing brings her back to her childhood where she and her sister Kane helplessly watched a demon eat their parents. Doma eventually rescued them, but not before her entire worldview about happiness changed. I once believed that the road of happiness continued forever and ever into the distance. When it was destroyed, I realized for the first time that happiness lies atop a thin sheet of glass. And just as we were saved, there are those whose happiness hasn't yet been destroyed. So, I wanted to get stronger and protect them. Her weakness is why she became a demon slayer. She wanted to protect weak people from experiencing what she did. Or at least, that's how it appears on the surface. But it goes further than that. She wants revenge. She hates demons for taking her happiness and exposing her fragility. Trying to protect the weak is her way to compensate for not being strong enough to protect her family. But underneath it all, she's still that angry kid lashing out at the world. And in this fight against Doma, where she finally gets a chance at justice for her sister, and to show how strong she's become in her own way, she's losing. And that's where you feel for Shinobu because you get the sense that she's asking herself, what was it all for? It's beautiful really because in one way or another, she's not just in a battle to set things right, she's in a battle to regain her true smile. And in order to do that, she has to encounter her inadequacies, break the fake smile that hides her disdain for demons, and let all her emotions be seen. She develops as a character because of this. But the best part is that this development comes through someone who's effectively her foil. When Doma was a child, he was incredibly intelligent and had an appearance that made everyone think he was from the gods. His parents created the eternal paradise faith whereby people came to him with their problems. The interesting thing about it all is that Doma thought these ailing people were weak and stupid to come to a kid with their problems, which in a sense makes sense to me because why are you coming to an elementary or middle school aged kid with problems? But hey, he looked down on them through an existential nihilistic worldview. When you die, you just become nothing. You just stop feeling anything. Your heart stops and your brain stops. You rot and return to the earth. As long as you are a living creature, it is unavoidable. They cannot accept something so simple. It must be difficult to be so dumb. Now, even though Doma thought that way, he saw these people as needing to be saved. In his view, that's why he was born, in much the same way that Shinobu as a demon slayer was born to protect weak people's happiness. And just as Shinobu hid her hatred for demons behind a fake smile, Doma hid his superiority toward humans behind a fake smile. Though, here's the kicker, and this ends up being a theme throughout every battle in Infinity Castle. The paths they chose to help people are markedly different because of how they saw themselves. We went over the fact that Shinobu saw herself as physically weak. It's to the point where she developed an inferiority complex. She's a phenomenally skilled Hashira, but still feels inadequate because of her size. She even mentions envying Gyomei because his stature makes slaying demons easier. Her size made not looking down at people, pun not intended but surely welcomed, easy for her, which is why her perception of helping the weak isn't twisted. She knows that the road of happiness can be broken at any time, and that the best way to preserve it is to protect it. Her humbleness guided her view. And then you have Doma, who was born gifted and as a result, developed a superiority complex. He thought the only way to save people was to literally take their troubles into himself by killing and absorbing them. And whereas Shinobu thought that the road of happiness can end, he thought that the road of happiness should never end. His followers can just happily enjoy eternity as a part of him. hence the name of his religion, Eternal Paradise Faith. It's it's pretty arrogant, I'm not gonna lie. Though his arrogance doesn't catch up to him yet, because after dealing a final blow to Doma, Shinobu gets absorbed into him as Kanawa walks in, thus ending the battle between the two, for now. And that's when Infinity Castle continues into the next battle. So, what the next fight does is address why Zenitsu was angry after reading that letter during the Hashira training arc. As he stands in front of the demon he was searching for, Zenitsu reveals that his master Jigoro Kuwajima committed seppuku, the reason being that one of his students became a demon. And that's when it's shown that the student in question is none other than the upper sixth demon in front of him, Kaigaku Inadama. Here's where the situation gets more fascinating. Essentially, what you have here are students of the previous Thunder Hashira who view his death very different. Zenitsu is devastated because Jigoro committed seppuku in the most agonizing way, alone, through the belly, and while slowly bleeding out. Jigoro's suffering was his way to take responsibility for the suffering that Kaigaku would cause the world. But in essence, it was a horrible way to take responsibility. It's tragic, yes, but it also causes immense suffering for the people who loved him, especially Zenitsu. Zenitsu thought the world of Jigoro because he pushed him to be the best that he could be. He saw value in Zenitsu before he could see any value in himself, even though Zenitsu could only master the first thunder breathing form. That's why, along with Kaigaku, he intended to hand him the mantle of Thunder Hashira. Though, here's the thing, as he talks about this situation to Zenitsu, Kaigaku says he's happy that the old man died the way he did. Kaigaku thought highly of himself and felt that being considered equal to the cowardly Zenitsu was an insult. He even says that Jigoro lowered his value by doing that. Now, the irony behind his viewpoint is that he doesn't even know the first thunder breathing form. He mastered everything else, but couldn't do the foundation of thunder breathing. That's the functional equivalent of bench pressing 300 pounds, but not being able to do 10 push-ups. It's like, bro, you ain't got nothing to show off about. You can't do push-ups. Like, shut up. It should be humbling, but that's not how he perceives the situation. As he and Zenitsu get into their fight, he constantly berates him and calls him a coward. And to a certain degree, he's kinda right. Here's what Zenitsu said about himself during the Mount Nataguma arc. I hate myself more than anyone. I always think I have to get my act together, but I end up cowering, running away, sniveling. I want to change. I want to be a competent person. Zenitsu acknowledges his cowardice, which for most of Demon Slayer has been his dominant character trait. However, I think even more important to his character is his humility because of his cowardice. He's a coward and takes responsibility for it and accountability for it by changing, which goes to show you that he's not a defeatist. Like, I know it may look that way with the exaggerated portions of his cowardice that they constantly show off instead of his more calm and composed self, but he's not really a defeatist at his heart. Then there's Kaigaku, who, through his past actions, shows that he's no better than Zenitsu. In fact, he's more cowardly. As the fight continues, Kaigaku shows that he is an extreme self-preservationalist masquerading as a triumphalist. Listen to what he says about his worldview. Until you die, you haven't lost. You may rub your face in the dirt. You may lose your home or drink muddy water. People may curse you for stealing money, but as long as you live on, you can win someday. You will win. I have moved forward with that belief. Now, this isn't your nice motivational Rocky Balboa quote about taking hits and moving forward, right? That's not what we have here. And this is why I say Kaigaku is an extreme self-preservationalist, because we find out that during the Hashira training arc, he met upper ranked 1. He's given a choice: die or drink Muzan's blood, effectively turning into a demon. And this guy is terrified. He's like, oh, without question, I'm drinking the blood. He doesn't even hesitate. I mean, he does a little, but only to make sure he drinks it in a manner that doesn't drop any to the ground. Now, to you and me, this is shameful. Or at least I hope this is shameful to you. It's shameful to me. Personally, I don't care what you're going through. There's no excuse for you becoming a demon. You know, like, the power of Christ compels you. But remember, Kaigaku doesn't see things that way. He lost his humanity, but thinks he's fine because until you die, you haven't lost. To live is to have another chance to win. The what he hopes to win is ambiguous because he never defines what he's living on to win. With these shameful aspects about him in mind, couldn't master the thunder breathing basics, an extreme self-preservationalist. He has the nerve to be haughty. And this is important because when comparing Zenitsu and Kaigaku, the refraining theme of the alternative path pops up, like it did with Shinobu and Doma. Again, it all had to do with each character's self perception. Zenitsu and Shinobu took different paths from Doma and Kaigaku because the former humbled themselves by acknowledging their weaknesses and changing, while the latter were arrogant and kept their weaknesses. There's more to say about the alternative path because it's deeper than you think, but I'll come back to that toward the end of the video. For now, let's talk about something that was pretty funny, to me at least. So, Kaigaku's hit Zenitsu with blood art enhanced thunder breathing forms, and it looks like he's winning. But in the end, Zenitsu shows the competence he's developed by defeating Kaigaku with the 7th thunder breathing form. The aftermath was serious, but I couldn't help but laugh because Kaigaku goes, "There's a 7th thunder breathing form? I knew you were that old man's favorite. Why would he only teach you that?" And I was waiting for the, "Nah, son, I created it myself." That's basically what Zenitsu did, right? That's what he said. Of course he could create original moves because he mastered the thunder breathing foundation. Kaigaku is so petty though that he tries to take solace in knowing that Zenitsu is falling to his death. But Yushido pulls up and is like, "Nope, you're pathetic, and you're dying alone." Which effectively means he lost, right? Because to die is to lose. Following those events, Infinity Castle goes into Tanjiro and Giyu vs. Akaza. Let me just say, that fight was sick. The storytelling behind it, the themes, the fight itself. So, one of the most important things that this fight does early on is establish how far Tanjiro has come in his journey. Whereas before he couldn't really fight to protect what was important to him, now he can because of all his experiences. And it's really cool that this is explored through Giyu's perspective because he was there in the beginning after Nezuko was forcibly turned. This is what Giyu says about Tanjiro. "Tanjiro, your techniques have improved by a lot. It would not be an overstatement to say that your ability is equal to Hashida's. You do this well against an upper rank Kizuki. That snowy day, all you could do was hang your head in despair. You wailed and begged for your sister's life. But now, you can fight. Now you won't lose. Either life or dignity." That's exactly what happens. Though Akaza launched a surprise attack to start the fight, Tanjiro cut off Akaza's arm to avoid the blow. The character development is immediately seen because he couldn't do that before when he wanted to help Rengoku, right? RIP. But not only does he cut off his arm, he's keeping up with Akaza, going toe to toe with him. He struggles some points here and there, but he's blocking his attacks now. And as they fight, they're talking to each other about their worldviews. Akaza acknowledges Tanjiro's growth. Somewhere along the line, he does that whole "become a demon with me" spiel to Giyu that he did to Rengoku, if I remember correctly. But anyway, Tanjiro says something about Akaza despising humans. That's when Akaza says, "You misunderstand, Tanjiro. I only despise the weak. I only spit on weaklings. Yes, weaklings make me sick. It is the law of nature that they be weeded out." It's social Darwinism. That's his guiding ideology. The thing that forms his principles. But Tanjiro doesn't accept that because what he says next, it makes sense, and it's diametrically opposed to Akaza's worldview. "Everything you're saying is wrong. Your presence here now is proof. Everyone is a helpless baby when they're born. Same with you, Akaza. You don't remember it, but when you were a baby, someone protected and helped you too. The strong protect the weak, then the weak get stronger and help those weaker than themselves. That is the law of nature." What Tanjiro describes here, it's social altruism. And it's this huge mic drop moment for Akaza because Tanjiro's words, they force him to remember his past, which took up a substantial amount of time, I might add. That flashback was long, but it's important because through it, you see that when he was human, Akaza was like Tanjiro in that he wanted to get stronger to protect the weak. Akaza had a sickly father whom he would steal money for so that he could buy medicine. And if you're gonna try and steal money from people, they're gonna try and whoop you behind. So he got stronger to put up a better fight and endure the subsequent beatings from the magistrate and officials whenever he got caught. Though, when his father heard what Akaza was doing on his behalf, he took away his Vivre card, if you catch my drift, by rope. Eventually he met Kansou, the person who taught him to polish his fighting in another town, and gets the folly beaten out of him. Like, he gets the tar beaten out of him. But instead of locking him up, Kansou let Akaza care for his sick daughter, Koyuki, while he worked to provide for her. Over the years, Akaza developed his fighting skills at Kansou's dojo and even consistently beat students from the neighboring dojo. He does this while caring for Koyuki and while Koyuki is healing well from her sickness, the two of them become close enough to become engaged. Kaizo even planned to give his dojo to his future son-in-law Akaza. But things take a dark turn. While Akaza visits his father's grave in his old town and thinks about how he's honoring his wish for him to live honestly, the competing dojo poisons Keizo's well. They couldn't beat Keizo or Akaza in a fair fight, so they went for the next best thing. And what ends up happening is that Keizo and Koyuki drink the well water and die. When Akaza returns, he's livid because before he left, he promised Koyuki that he would always protect her. And now, she's gone. And even worse, he wasn't there for her and Keizo when they died. So what does he do? He barges into the neighboring dojo and annihilates everyone. It's a bloodbath. When he's finished, brains and organs are smeared on the walls, eyeballs are on the floor, and skulls are smashed in. He did it all with his bare fists, mind you, which is crazy. After he walks away, he encounters Muzan, who is surprised at reports of a demon murdering a large group of people, just turns out to be Akaza. Nonetheless, Muzan runs his arm through Akaza's skull, which is pretty brutal by the way, and turns him into a demon. At that point, Akaza lost everything, so he didn't care about anything anymore. Somewhere during the time that all that happens, Akaza thinks to himself that since the weak use underhanded tactics to win, he hates them. The irony in that thinking is glaring, because where have we heard that before? From Tanjiro. Specifically after Akaza fought Rengoku and ran away from the sunrise. Listen to what Tanjiro said. The Demon Slayer Corps is always fighting you demons in the dark of the night, where you have the advantage. That's right, us flesh and blood humans. Our wounds won't close up that quickly, and we cannot regenerate a limb once lost. Yet, they still fight. And this is why I say that they're alike, because apart from the superficial similarities in their lives, sick father, desire to become stronger to help their loved ones, they hate when people fight unfair and claim to be strong. Though the similarities go beyond that. As Infinity Castle flashes back to the present, Tanjiro and Giyu are struggling. Giyu unlocks the mark, which was amazing in and of itself, but Tanjiro sees that they need something else to defeat Akaza. After some more flashbacks with Inosuke and his dad, Tanjiro unlocks the Selfless State and enters the transparent world, which was a pretty crazy moment. I gotta say that the symbolism for the Selfless State is profound. It's the ultimate imagery of Tanjiro personifying his beliefs. He needs to eliminate all malice and killing intent to enter and maintain it, which is kind of what Tanjiro's all about, right? Purity and whatnot. The transparent world requires him to seal his other senses and turn his mind invisible, whatever the heck that means. Together, to me, they kind of seem like a variation of Ultra Instinct, but hey, maybe that's just me. Something that stood out to me is Akaza mentioning not being able to enter the Selfless State, despite training for hundreds of years. How could he, right? He needs to eliminate his fighting spirit, and we all know he ain't doing that. Anyway, Tanjiro gives Akaza a very low haircut if you catch my drift, but Akaza still fights for a while. When he's about to use the move that he finished Rengoku with, he turns it on himself. It turns out that throughout his life, the weak person he despised and wanted to eliminate was himself. He remembered his past because of Tanjiro and felt regret for the carnage he brought throughout the years. It was a horrible way to honor his deceased loved ones. He ultimately defeats himself by accepting his memories and being embraced by apparitions of his father, Keizo, and Koyuki. He fades away after becoming human in his vision, and Tanjiro and Giyu pass out after a long-fought battle. Here's the thing, the wonderful thing about Infinity Castle, and even Demon Slayer in its entirety, is how it shows that people can be stronger based on their choices. Again, that theme of the alternative path. Almost everyone who gets screen time has a tragic past, though Demon Slayer uses vivid imagery to show that those who rely on others and use their pain to help people triumph in the end. However, those who choose to let their pain destroy them and shut everyone out, even shutting out the memories of the ones they lost, make it easy to abandon their humanity. Right? Mind blown. It's a pretty good message. But anyway, that's what I wanted to say about this portion of Infinity Castle. It's a race against time as everyone tries to defeat Muzan before he can get to Nezuko, and I'm here for it. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Try checking out other videos on the channel if you want more, And hey, depending on when you're watching this, another Infinity Castle video might be popping up on your screen. Hope to see you in the next one. Peace.